In 1992, a group of musicians from Seattle unknowingly created one of the most influential bands in emo history. Their debut album, Diary, has been held up by critics as the bridge between hardcore and emo music. I've had several people asking me to do the story, including one person asking me over and over and over again. So here it is. This is the story of Sunny Day Real Estate. Before we get started, be sure to hit the bell notification icon and put all notifications on. I hear from a lot of my subscribers that they don't even get notifications when I post my videos. I would greatly appreciate if you guys did that. The story begins with guitarist Dan Horner, who was attending the University of Washington. It was by 1992, Horner became friends with a bassist named Nate Mendel, who was a fellow student. They started jamming together, experimenting a lot, and they came up with ethereal sounding material, using space in their music. They recruited a drummer, William Goldsmith, after seeing him at a punk rock show. Mendel already had a reputation in the city, having played in a lot of groups like Christ on a Crutch and Diddley Squat, and he approached Goldsmith using his local celebrity status to join their new outfit. Goldsmith also played in a lot of bands, and there were always groups fighting over the drummer. The band struggled to find a singer though, so Horner originally fronted the trio. They released a 2-song single called Flatland Spider, and Mendel decided to go on tour with Christ on a Crutch, and it was at this point Goldsmith invited an old friend and bandmate of his, Jeremy Enoch, from a group he played in high school called Reason for Hate. The term Reason for Hate referred to sexism, racism, and xenophobia. Enoch took over vocal duties and Horner went on bass, and they wrote some songs including Thief, Steal Me a Peach, and Seven. Enoch recalled, "I was still in high school and we started to play as a 3-piece when Nate was on tour just for fun. We just wanted to get together. There was so much joy and laughter." Goldsmith, meanwhile, told Pace magazine, "We ditched the 46 songs we wrote previously and then started fresh. The hardcore scene had a lot of screaming, so the focus on melody and storytelling as opposed to protest was an experiment." When Mendel returned home, they decided to stick with this direction and expand to a quartet. Horner also moved to guitar and Mendel went back to bass. The first song that the quartet finished and wrote together was Seven. Goldsmith claimed the track took, 7 hours to finish. The band went through multiple identities before finding their permanent name. They first called themselves Empty Set, then Chewbacca Kaboom, and even briefly called themselves One Day I Stopped Breathing. The name Sunny Day Real Estate came from Mendel's interpretation of the Talking Heads song Nothing But Flowers. Reflecting on the commercialization of everything, he pondered what unusual things could be commercialized in the future and came up with Sunny Days, hence Sunny Day Real Estate. He thought there'd be a company in the future that could sell you sunny days. Mendel was probably the most seasoned out of all the musicians, with Enoch telling Pace magazine, "All of us were just kids, but Nate was already an established god in the pantheon of punk in Seattle." While you may expect the likes of Nirvana, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and Alice in Chains to have heavily influenced Sunny Day Real Estate, they did have some influence, especially Nirvana, with the loud, quiet dynamic, which Nirvana actually took from Pixies. Sunny Day Real Estate's music, though, took a lot of inspiration from Seattle's underground. Their music was unpredictable, evocative, turbulent, and they had many shifts in moods. Sunny Day Real Estate didn't want to feel beholden to a certain scene or sound, and the key word in their history is experimentation. Goldsmith told Sub Pop's website, "It was guys that played hardcore experimenting with actually writing songs. Hardcore is really fast and out of control. There was still songwriting and arranging, but this was a whole new thing, learning how to leave space. We had these melodies that were kind of triumphant. They matched what we were feeling. As for the meaning of their lyrics," Horner recalled, "we were talking about loss and love and heartbreak and hope and disillusionment and fear and overcoming." The band was also influenced by Discord record bands like Rites of Spring and Shudder to Think. The taste of the days that will always burn. Sunny Day Real Estate hadn't played a lot of live shows before they got signed. In fact, they'd only played 2 concerts before landing a recording contract, and it was just a strange set of circumstances. A friend of the band, guitarist Greg Anderson, who played in the punk band Engine Kid, had to have his group drop out of a gig at Seattle's Crocodile Cafe. But Anderson put in a good word for Sunny Day Real Estate to take over their spot. The spot was actually a showcase for local label Sub Pop Records. In the audience was a sparse crowd of 3 people, but it also included Sub Pop label co-founder Jonathan Ponman and he was immediately blown away by what he saw. He literally walked up to the members after their show and asked them if they wanted to make a record. He signed them a few weeks later. Horner told Paste Magazine, at the time Sub Pop was the pinnacle. Everybody wanted to sound like Nirvana, and for good reason. In my opinion, there's no record label that has more cachet. That was more important. Enoch added, we didn't really look at the contract. We just signed it. After signing with Sub Pop, the label loaned the band a van, and they soon hit the road for a cross-country tour that saw them stop in Chicago to record their debut record with producer Brad Wood. He had previously done Hum's Hello Kitty and Liz Phair's Exile in Guyville. By the time the band hit the studio, Sunny Day Real Estate had played so many shows that recording their debut record was basically done on muscle memory. The resulting album was 1994's Diary. The band's songs, some of which were numbered, referred to what sequence they were written in, hence titles like 7, 47, and 48. The group admitted to Paste Magazine that the naming convention was inspired by Fugazi's song number 1. The album's iconic artwork features figures similar to those of popular children's toys Little People. The artwork juxtaposed the smiling little people with no arms and the toaster on fire. The album opens with the blistering track 7, a fan favorite and the first single issued from the record. The song In Circles was written by Enoch, who wrote it on acoustic and played it for the guys. Deals with the circle of pain. Released in 1994, Diary quickly became the cornerstone of the emerging emo genre. The band took an experimental approach focusing on drones, feedback, and open spaces, contrasting with Seattle's dominant grunge scene at the time. But the band did little to no interviews to promote the album. Mendel told the Miami New Times, "We kept that policy for the whole time we were a band before." Goldsmith added, "It just seemed like what each of us had to say individually was kind of pointless. We wanted to let the music speak for itself, I guess. There was a kind of mystique that was created because of that, but it wasn't really intentional. I actually did one interview by myself towards the end of things for this little fanzine, and when I read it, I thought, that's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen." But in a strange twist, the band appeared in an ad for the store Nordstrom. In a 1998 interview with Norm Arenas of Texas Is the Reason, Horner explained the band made up a fake band name and brought in a fake lead singer for the ad shoot, only to have the store stick their real band name on the ad. Sunny Day Real Estate's debut album went on to become one of the best-selling records in Sub Pop's catalog, moving around 250,000 copies. The band appeared on The Jon Stewart Show, performing the song 7, and also appeared on MTV's 120 Minutes. By the end of 1994, Sunny Day Real Estate were touring with Shudder to Think and Soul Coughing. Their debut record went on to influence so-called emo bands who followed in their footsteps, like Taking Back Sunday and Jimmy Eat World. But things wouldn't last long for Sunny Day Real Estate. The relationships between the band members were rocky. The group was asked to perform at a concert hosted by LA radio station K-Rock, but guitarist Dan Horner refused to perform, and so the group played as a three-piece. Just a year later, after recording their second album known as LP2 or the Pink Album in 1995, the band broke up. Enoch remarked to The Rocket how their second album sounded incomplete and unresolved, remarking, "There's a darkness to the Pink record. There's a mood there that I really love. Knowing what it was like to do it, I can sense the tension and undercurrent there." He went on to say, "I actually hated the recording process because my creativity was extremely stifled. I pretty much went in there and laid it down and got out." Sub Pop ended up issuing the album by late 1995, but they had no artwork or liner notes, and the album also contained unfinished lyrics. The band simply told the label to make it pink, hence the cover. Enoch added, "We broke up and we just felt like we were done. We put no real energy into the artwork or into anything. On the songs, there aren't lyrics. In a lot of cases, we never sat down to write them because we just wanted to get it out of the way as fast as possible. So I just sang a lot of gibberish, which makes it really quirky." The album ended up peaking at number 25 on the Heatseekers chart. Though it was not widely known at the time, the band had planned to break up before they even started recording their second album. According to an interview the band gave to the Miami New Times, tensions were at an all-time high. They boiled over when Enoch suddenly declared himself a born-again Christian. Enoch's desire to sing about his conversion made his fellow band members like Mendel and Goldsmith feeling upset and confused. Mendel told the Miami New Times, "I don't think Jeremy and I ever hated each other, but my bitterness toward his new spirituality was a highly personal thing that went back to me being raised Catholic. I'd always been made to feel a tremendous amount of guilt because of that when I was growing up, but I managed to get away from it. Then all of a sudden Jeremy was into what felt like the same thing. Because of the things from my past, I became extremely frustrated with him. The band needed to break up anyway. I mean, we were definitely on our way to breaking up, but what was happening with Jeremy pushed it over the edge." The group disbanded with Mendel and Goldsmith joining Dave Grohl's new outfit, Foo Fighters. Grohl had actually attended the band's last gig and was impressed with the rhythm section, and he needed a band to tour behind Foo Fighters' first album. Enoch meanwhile pursued a solo career, resulting in the 1996 record Return of the Frog Queen, which was issued on Sub Pop. Interestingly enough, the album featured a 20-piece orchestra. Horner left Seattle for the quiet life in eastern Washington, getting a rural piece of land with his wife, establishing a self-sufficient farm. Horner and Enoch did keep in touch and jam from time to time, and they even came up with a song called Two Promises, which ended up on their third record. She tasted my blood, now she's gone again. Goldsmith's time in Foo Fighters was short-lived though, as he left the group by 1997 after butting heads with frontman and bandleader Dave Grohl over his drumming on Foo Fighters' second record, The Color and the Shape. If you guys are interested, the tracks from that album with Goldsmith's drumming are actually up on YouTube. Grohl ended up recording most of the drums on that album. Goldsmith told the Rocket newspaper that he used to make an annual pilgrimage to Coney Island in New York and get his palm read by a fortune teller. The fortune teller told the drummer that he'd be reuniting with two old friends, and he was thinking to himself that Sunny Day Real Estate had 4 members, not 3, so he discarded what she told him. When he returned home, he called up Enoch about jamming together, and the frontman was already thinking about starting a new project with Horner. It was Sunny Day Real Estate's manager, Greg Williamson, and their old label Sub Pop, who had a Sunny Day Real Estate album of rarities they wanted to put out. When the idea was presented to Enoch, he wanted to write some new songs for the record. This led to Sunny Day Real Estate reuniting, minus bassist Nate Mendel, who was off touring with Foo Fighters. Although Mendel did mention in Foo Fighters documentary Back and Forth that he almost left to rejoin his old outfit, but Grohl talked him out of it. Goldsmith remarked about the band's previous issues, "All our problems have been personality-based. Musically, we never had a problem, and we still don't." As Enoch, Goldsmith, and Horner reconvened to jam, they didn't play a single old song, instead writing a slew of new material, and it led to the trio ditching the idea of a compilation record, and instead, they wrote a brand new album, 1998's How It Feels to Be Something On. Also, for the first time in the band's history, they'd be granting press interviews. The band also enlisted Jeff Palmer, formerly of the San Francisco band The Mommy Heads, to replace Mendel. Palmer soon left the band a short time after, and he was replaced by Joe Skyward. The title track and Every Shining Time You Arrive were intended for Enoch's second solo record, but later became Sunny Day Real Estate songs. The album shifted away from their original emo sound into more experimental territory. Perhaps Enoch's religious awakening and lineup changes contributed to this change. The group soon left Sub Pop, and instead of signing with a major label, they signed with outfit Time Bomb Recordings. Horner remarked at the time, "Our Sub Pop contract was up. Time Bomb is a million times better. There's better people, better marketing. We sell records now. We now have money to tour." Enoch admitted that he wasn't a fan of new music, claiming that he was listening to the Commodores and The Who around the time of writing their 4th album. He stated, "Nothing new seems to have any courage." Some interviewers referred to their 4th album as a concept record, something Enoch pushed back against, claiming there was probably a multiplicity of themes, citing songs like Killed by an Angel, Snibe, and Television as some of the darker songs on the record. while The Ocean, One, and Rising Tide are more hopeful and light. Much was made in the press about the band's softer, gentler, and more progressive sound on this album. In February and March of 2001, the group planned to embark on a 1-month-long tour of Europe. However, the group canceled the tour a month before its scheduled start date due to the birth of Horner's child. The band was also dealing with a host of other issues, with Rolling Stone reporting that the band had, and I quote, a string of bad luck, including with their own management company and Arista Records, who ceased to distribute albums from Time Bomb Recordings. According to the band, this made their European tour and advertising a new album near impossible. Going on to state, as frustrations built, progress on the new album became stagnant at times. Not wanting to build personal tensions, the band decided to split up indefinitely. It was in 2001 that Enoch, Goldsmith, and Mendel formed the group The Fire Theft that lasted until 2004. Sunny Day Real Estate has reunited several times since their breakup in 2001, including in 2009, and most recently in 2022, with bassist Chris Jordan replacing Mendel. The band released their first new song in 2014, Lipton Witch, on a split 7-inch single with Circa Survive on Record Store Day. Then in December of 2018, drummer William Goldsmith claimed on his Facebook page that the unfinished fifth Sunny Day Real Estate album remained in, I quote, silenced, abandoned, and buried within the murkiest depths of Dave Grohl's sock drawer. The sessions for their fifth album took place at Grohl's Studio 606 and were abandoned due to Jeremy Enoch not receiving, and I quote, the moral support as well as engineering that he deserved. Goldsmith also claimed that Grohl held a grudge against Nate Mendel for his involvement in the Fire Theft and thus would not be supportive and Mendel completing the new Sunny Day Real Estate LP. The bassist, however, denied Goldsmith's initial allegations, to which Goldsmith replied that he had not spoken to Mendel since 2011 after a planned conference call to discuss finishing the album. The band most recently released their song Novum Vetus, which apparently dated back to the 1998 sessions for their third record, How It Feels to Be Something On. All these things we've said before. Today's Sunny Day Real Estate's influence can be heard across multiple genres, and their debut record Diary remains a touchstone of emotional and dynamic rock. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.